Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Check Me. I know it's been a while since I've hopped on here and said pretty much anything. Of course, every time I hop back on, I'm always like, I'm not sick, but I got like a cold or something, a little runny nose. So I don't really care for it. But I'm back. Multiple topics I want to talk about: South Carolina women's basketball, women's basketball itself, Shannon Sharpe, Colin Coward, the NIL, opting out the NFL Combine, the NBA. Also, so many topics I want to talk about, and I think that I personally think that all these topics are hard hitting, real, and they should be discussed. So the very first thing I want to talk about that's kind of top of the mind right now is about NCAA players opting out of the combine and or their pro day and just letting the game film speak for themselves. When we look at traditionally the combine it was to test the measurables, the intangibles of certain guys that playing aren't really playing on the field. So the combine itself is a true test for speed, agility, blah, blah, but how well does that translate to the field? And what we've seen over the past couple of years, or many years, is a lot of these guys that have these magnificent intangibles really don't make a key or a big difference when it comes to playing on the field. Of course, unless you're like a Tyreek Hill, who's just crazy. I don't think he had the fastest. I don't think he had the fastest three cone or the L drill or 40 when he ran. I'm not sure, but you can see his speed translates to the field. I have to check that just to make sure. But what we're seeing is people getting mad. They're opting out of bowl games. They're opting out of the combine. They're opting out of their pro day. And I think it's a good thing. If a player has played well throughout the whole season, what NFL scouts are going to look most at are their game film. So if they've been balling out all season, they played well throughout the whole season, and now they want to go to the combine and maybe hurt their stock, I wouldn't do it if I'm a player anyway. Mainly because that's what they're going to break down. The game film is more important. You're going to see more tendencies. You're going to see how speed translates. You're going to see how strength is articulated on the field as opposed to at a combine in that initial setting where you're not tested in true conditions. You're tested in perfect conditions. And that's a big difference between game film and the combine. Now, guys that already are going to be guys that are already going to be drafted and their stock is high, let the game field speak. Why does Caleb Williams? I don't think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the draft right now, but why would Caleb Williams go in the pro day when he's been the number one pick for the past year? Like, why would he do that? So I think that we want these players because we want these events to have true meaning where the top players are there. But what I like is if the top players do opt out, right, and they say, let my game field speak, it doesn't hurt their draft stock, then players who don't necessarily get an opportunity can be in there and maybe shine in the combine. And I think one thing the combine needs to do is instead of it making it one combine, and I think they talked about this as well too, making it regional combines where we have multiple combines instead of one large event. This is more money for the NFL. Also, it can put more attention on different regions and a lot of guys have more opportunities. So I don't necessarily care about guys opting out. And if I'm a player who's a top pick, why would I go to the combine and hurt my stock? Why would I do that? Maybe go talk with coaches and whatnot. That's a big part of it. The interview portion is a big part of it. May not even take the test if you don't even take the test, the Wonderlic test. I'm not sure if that's the test I think it's a test they still use. But why would I go do that and hurt my stock? Right? Come to me in my environment, talk to me where I played, etc., where I can have a more original conversation. If teams want to talk to me, why not talk? That's just the business side of it when it comes to the stock rising, but also this. If I'm a top pick, right? If I'm a top pick and I know that if I put my body through something, right, for a 2 to 3 month sprint to attain numbers that aren't necessarily valuable when it comes to playing on the field, why would I not train my body for the long haul for rookie minicamp? Right? So if I train my body for rookie minicamp in May and June, right now my body is more primed for playing football as opposed to primed for just speed and agility for one event. So guys who say I'm gonna go to the combine, I'm gonna do train for February, and then now they have to train their body again for the rookie minicamp, it may affect them. and rookie minicamp. Why not, if my stock's already high, just train for rookie minicamp because I know I'll be drafted? Looking at playbooks, looking at schemes, possible teams that may draft me based on my skill set as it pertains to their team. So I think that we have to really, even though we, like, our personal bias is to want these things to happen. We want these guys to go to the combine. Oh, it's wrong they're not going to a combine. It's wrong they're opting out of bowl games. But why would they, right? If your stock's already high, why would you play in a bowl game and get hurt, right? If your stock's already high, why would you go to the combine and get hurt, right? I like pro days. Pro days are their environment, their guys and whatnot, so things may look prettier. But if you're a quarterback, you can have a big arm at the draft and throw a nice throw. Like Joe Milton had a nice throw at the draft, but can he make that throw? Can he make that throw, the right throw at the right time? Can he make that in cover 4, cover 3, cover 6, cover 3, cover 2? That's the thing we have to look at. So it's not just a perspective of, oh, he had big numbers or, he has a big arm or whatever it is. It's more or less like, hey, if you look at his game film, what are his tendencies? What does he like to do in these situations? Does he panic? Is he poised? How does he lead the team? Game film is going to reign supreme every single time. And we have to stop wanting things to happen because it's our personal bias and look at the overall dynamic of it and figure out, okay, what's best for that player. This ties into NIL, which I'm going to talk about right now. With the NIL deal, people think it's disastrous, and I think it's a perfect harmony. I think it's perfect because we're allowing players to get their money. If a coach can get paid millions of dollars and they're making money off of the players, why can't the players get the just compensation, right? So just compensation is very important, right? I'm using some political terms, but if players can get just compensation for their performance, why are we mad at that? And it's this overarching dynamic of why the same people who don't like the NFL don't like the NIL. Here's why. There are some people in this world that don't like the NFL players getting money. These are the same people that don't like the NIL, the players getting money in NIL, because they want control, right? It's about control. It's about controlling somebody to work for you or do something for you or do something for a person or team because it withholds integrity, right? We want them to play for free, play for fun, for the love of the game. You can play for the love of the game and get paid. Because if you don't think that's true, I want you to do your job and not get paid a dime for it. Don't get mad at these players for wanting money, for transferring whatever it is, for whatever reason it is, and get mad at them for wanting that, and then at the same time you go on your job every single day and get paid for the work that you do. Because if you think the NIL was wrong, then I want you to go to work every single day and not get paid for the work that you do. I think we have to start looking at that in a different light. The reason why it's so out of control right now is because the NCAA is not paying the players. The only time they paid the players was going to play the players NCAA the video game. Because, we need that. We want that. Right? But when it comes to, players are getting paid for name and likeness, the NCAA still makes bank off of players, but doesn't pay them. There should be some tiered compensation from that perspective. You can go to court with this and everything, but what do you see in men's basketball? You see players saying, "Okay, look, I can get paid in the overtime league," and then four out of the 5 players, NBA's draft, top NBA draft, four out of the 5 players did not go to college. If you go back to, I think I went back to 2003, 2004, every top 5 pick only played 1 to 2 years in college basketball. That's why college basketball is dying. Because if you're good and ready now, after 1 year you can go. With football, it's after a little bit time that they can go when they can go play. So I like the idea that they're paying players. I like the idea. It's 2024. I like the idea that the NCAA should pay them for the video game. This should keep up. And if you're mad at it from a coaching perspective, well, I don't know what guys are going to play on my team. Stop your recruiting. Right? It used to be, hey, my program speaks for itself. Right? I don't care if I'm a dirtbag of a coach. My program speaks for itself, and I'm gonna and you're gonna come here and play and listen to what I have to say. Now coaches are getting mad because they have to coach. They have to coach now, and not only that, they have to be a better person than just do what they say. Guys are transferring because the coaches of NCAA were not people and did not have managed people. They know how to manage people that they only know how to manage soldiers. You're going to take orders and do what I say, right? Nick Saban, to be honest with you, I think it's kind of soft the way he went out, saying, I'm not saying it's the main reason, but NIL transfer. You gotta be and I like how in Nick Saban, I think he could have stayed and still put in recruits. If you think of the last 4 years since NIL, Alabama's the number one. Number one, Alabama has not stopped. They've been number one in recruiting over the last 4 years collectively, right? So Nick Saban hasn't lost players, like he hasn't lost recruits, right? It wasn't like he wasn't doing well, right? He was still doing well. His name spoke for himself. But being a good person as well as a coach is important. You can't be a scumbag and coach now. That's not how it operates. You have to be a person who treats people right and treats people well. Just like the NFL. The NCAA is getting more like the NFL when it comes to really taking care of and treating people right. And when the tables turn to the players, people get upset. Because people want the players to be controlled by the coach. Much like it was before, and it's different than it is in the NFL. So allow the players to go and do what they want to do. Here's the thing: the NIL is going to balance out itself. The transfer portal is going to balance out itself. Players are going to start to realize, if you want to chase the money, ball out. Wherever you go, if you perform well, the money's going to go there. Doesn't matter. And I will say this from a personal perspective. When I played college football, I had 4 different offenses in my college career. Not one offense did it ever fit me. I had the mentality, Seth, you work hard, you'll break the roster. Every year they brought a transfer guy, right? It did not fit my style of play. It did not fit. It didn't allow me to develop in the way I wanted to develop. And I did transfer one time, but if I really thought about it, I would have transferred again. But I had the mentality, Seth, work hard, break the roster, right? Bring in a 6'2" guy from Penn State. Bring in a 6'4" guy from Virginia Tech. Exceptional players. But I was never part of the plan. If I'm a college player, am I going to stay there in that scheme? No, I'm not going to do that. So I say that because give players the option. If we get mad at that, we don't know what's better for us. But sometimes we don't know what's better for people. And we have to stop thinking that mentality. We don't know their situation, what they're going through, how they operate in the system. And don't get me wrong, it will balance out themselves. And you'll see a lot of guys transferring, trying to find a spot and only hurting their stock. Right? So I do like what Nick Saban said. He said, the coach never asked him, did you play your freshman year? He never asked him that. Right? They look at your game film, break down your game film, they ask you who you are, and want to know who you are as a person. There are a lot of character things that showcase some players who transfer a lot. A lot. But if you look at some of the best players that played well and evolved in the league, they transferred. And we have to understand that we can't control people from that perspective, right? If people want to transfer, they want to go, they want to go. If they want to stay at their program, they stay at their program. The NIL is going to bounce out itself. The NCAA has to start paying these players. And the only person that's not being affected by it, and no one's tapping into their money, is the NCAA. But their time is coming. Their time is definitely coming. Because once you see more players opting out of these bowl games, college basketball is already done, right? College basketball is already done in itself. If you look at the top 5 players in college basketball, it's really kind of hard to name. They're going to be gone after this year. So we talking about a senior going 4 years, the big dance. That's great and everything, but we're talking about Bronny James, who's a backup at USC. That's the biggest story this year. The biggest story this year in college basketball, right now, men's college basketball, is Bronny James playing at USC. That's the biggest story. So college basketball already reached this point where it's diluted in the fact that people are one and done. And Calipari figured it out. Hey, look, one and done. I'll get you to the league. Keep on coming to Kentucky, right? And that's the dynamic of it. Women's basketball, on the other hand, which I segue to, women's basketball is flourishing, right? Mainly because women's basketball, its players essentially will make more money if they stay 4 years in college than if they would if they left early. Now, some players do leave early. For whatever reason. maybe because the NIL money's not there. But if you're a top college basketball player, stay all 4 years, make as much money as you can, because you'll probably make more money than you would your first year in the WNBA. Right? Some of these women's college basketball players make up to $1 million. That's a team salary sometimes in the WNBA, right? Or close to it. So I'm saying that because women's college basketball has been exciting to watch for the past decade, right? Because we're seeing players stay all 4 years. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Dawn Staley, getting these girls, leaving the whole roster, leaving it now, not losing a game and win the SEC championship. We are seeing a global perspective of women's college basketball, of following stories and players. White people, black people, everybody's invested in women's college basketball. The reason why the NBA doesn't do well is because the culture changes. We're not following the stories, right? We're not keeping up to date with those things. But yes, watching South Carolina and LSU is a primetime game, right? Watching Iowa, watching USC women's basketball, Juju Watkins, who I think is one of the best players I've ever seen with just raw talent, right? Who probably will finish her career with more points than anybody, right? We see these players, we follow these stories, and they're 10 times more exciting to watch and follow than it would be in any other than men's basketball. Which leads me to the women's South Carolina game and LSU game, SEC championship game. I love to see these two teams compete. They're always well matched. It's always a great game. I thought the first game, South Carolina got away with Angel Reese fouling out. But the situation that happened, I love the way Dawn Staley responded to it. She said, "That's not our character. That's not how we operate. That's not what we do." Right? We understand college basketball, and basketball itself gets chippy. Right? I'm pretty sure you have coworkers you don't like on your job. Right? You don't appreciate on your job. Right? It may get chippy. It may get a little contentious. But that's the nature of the game. And I love the way she responded to it. So, moving on, I want to talk about Club Shay Shay, and we see Club Shay Shay is blowing up. His podcast is just blowing up. I want to talk about Colin Cowherd. I call him Colin Cowherd, but I call him Colin Cowherd. This guy right here is a piece of work, 110% piece of work. But every dollar that Sharpe makes, Colin Cowherd makes. Because the volume is produced by Shannon Sharpe's podcast is produced by a company that Colin Cowherd founded, and that's The Volume. The Volume started 3 years ago. They have big names, big people on it. Just for Richard Sherman, Draymond Green, Shannon Sharpe, the Nightcap with Ocho Cinco. They got Chris Manx. I'm not sure you know who that is. Colin Cowherd has his own podcast as well. Daniel Cormier has his podcast on as well too. I mean, we're talking big names, and one of the reasons why this is that Shannon Sharpe has taken off is he has been a persona that is his persona, and has been something that has corrected society when we saw with Skip. He always talks about how Skip did him a favor. Shannon Sharpe did Skip a favor, right? It made Skip kind of balance out itself. We don't even see highlights from Stephen A. and Skip anymore, right? These guys that just kind of blabbermouth about sports and really don't know the ins and outs, right? What we see is players taking back the platform. Guys like Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is a personality that not only is tapping into his sports knowledge, but he's also tapping into just media entertainment in general. And he's allowing the people to come on the show and speak and just talk what they want to talk about, right, without any introduction and interruption. This is a model I think a lot of people are going to do. I don't think it's always the best model, but I think it's a model that a lot of people are going to start taking advantage of and allowing the people to actually speak. I don't want to bring somebody on my show, like he said, bring somebody on his show or my show, and then have me speak all the time. This is their opportunity for us to get to know them and speak. And Shannon Sharpe has done an exceptional job about that. We don't even see clips really of him and Skip anymore. We watch Nightcap, and then we watch Let me watch Club Shay Shay, right? Just because it's an authentic conversation. He's relatable. We know he's not gonna go run his mouth to somebody, right? And this is something that he was leaning more towards when he was on what was it, Undisputed. But then when he left, the best thing back for him was taking his platform back because he's his main selling point. Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. And Stephen A. Smith's probably worse than Skip Bayless. Stephen A. Smith is probably the biggest puppet in the industry. All right, he doesn't really speak. He makes noise to make waves, and a lot of you guinea pigs who watch him love it. Right? I'm not going to Stephen A. Smith for sports advice, political advice, entertainment advice, any advice in my life. I want to go to him for anything because he just makes headlines. And once you guys kind of realize that he just makes headlines, you'll start to realize he's not talking much about anything. But we have these multiple podcasts coming out, players taking the platform back. One of the things I did for the past couple of years was stop getting my information from reporters. What are they saying in the locker room? What are they putting on social media? Who are they communicating with? That's more of an indicator. I want to look at the after-game reports from the actual players rather than the headline discussed from an opinion from somebody who doesn't know about sports or has to make a headline every day so you can watch their show. Club Shay Shay and a Nightcap are that raw kind of perspective. I don't really care for Ocho Cinco. Ocho Cinco's so diplomatic and political that he doesn't have a point of view or perspective. So I don't really care for Ocho Cinco. He's too green for me. I think that one of the reasons why he hasn't really ruffled any feathers when it comes to industry is because he doesn't really have a backbone when it comes to speaking true on issues or getting a keen perspective. So he's kind of green. Gilbert Arenas, I don't really care for Gilbert Arenas, but Gilbert Arenas will speak strong on his opinions and how he feels, even though they're wrong. I rather trust a man who's going to speak honest about what he feels on his opinion rather than someone who tries to be diplomatic in every situation or political in every situation. So I like to see that. I like the fact that Shannon Sharpe's bringing other guys onto the show. I want to hear Chad Ochocinco talk football, right? I want to hear Chad Ochocinco's mindset when it comes to, okay, what's your mindset when you have to run a slant versus cover 2 or cover 6, right? What's your mindset of you're the slot and you have to you have an override, you have to move the safety, right? I want to see more of that versus Shannon Sharpe giving his political perspective on things because he doesn't look at policy or anything. So those are kind of Shannon Sharpe has done a great job of it. I like the fact that he's kind of veered a little bit more away from ESPN and more of his podcast. I think he still should keep the podcast. I mean the ESPN because there's that platform. I'm hoping they're weaning Shannon Sharpe out. Stephen A. Smith out. Guys like that and giving the platform back to players. I think that's the most important thing, and those are the things that we essentially want to hear about and want to talk about. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the podcast today. No other existing topics that I think that are let me check that are going crazy. I am going to start making this podcast a little bit more. Okay, the Oscars are tonight. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to the Oscars. I want to make this podcast start talking a little bit more about social entertainment issues as well too. I think that's something I want to definitely talk about. But I will say this: this is the only political thing that I will say, and it's important that if you're going to give a political perspective on anything in life, that you look at the policy. And what most people go off of is their feeling and what they feel is happening or what they think is happening based off what somebody said. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're going to speak on any issue, take a look at Congress and see what they voted on, how they voted on it, what they talked about, and what they're supporting before you speak on anything. Because a lot of these politicians will say one thing and then and then do another thing in front of your face because they know that most of you are lazy. Most of you have probably never looked at the policy ever in your life of what senators and the House voted on. Most of you probably never looked at all at their campaign financing, where they're getting money from. You probably never ever looked at who they support, the values they support. These are important things when you're looking at voting and or giving your political perspective. Because I know one thing, most of you guys are lazy and you won't do it yourself. You'll go off the idea. You'll listen to something on TV and it takes to be true. Most of the people get their information from Instagram and TikTok. They're not getting the information from what's happening. Because if you really want to look at the policy and what people voted on and what politicians supported, you can go online and look at it. So whatever agenda that you're trying to push and support, look at the policy, right? Before you give any political perspective. The thing about it is, I know you're not going to do that. All you're going to do, really, is give your political perspective on it, because based off of how you feel and not what's going on. Because most of America and most people are lazy and won't. It's a heavy look. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy, right? It's a heavy look. But if you go and look, you'll see what politicians are working for America and what politicians are working for themselves. And it's not hard to find and see who's working for who. So that's it for Check Me today. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a long podcast. My first one going back. I'm going to break this down so you guys can see all individual videos. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm out.